And before that evening ended, greed would begin exposing itself before the whole village. More in here. Let's look at the fourth episode of the story, the Orphan. Let's dive in. The compound became silent, so silent that even the sound of moving leaves could be heard clearly. Villagers crowded outside Uncle Enyinnya's compound fence. Some stood on stones trying to see properly. Others whispered nervously among themselves. Nobody understood what was happening. At the center of the compound stood Chinedum. Dust covered his feet from the long journey. The calabash rested quietly before him. Beside him stood Uncle Enyinnaya, Mama Oriako, Enyinnaya, and Oriako. Fear hid behind their faces, even though they tried pretending to remain calm, especially Uncle Enyinnaya. Because the moment Chinedum mentioned the old woman from the forest, a forgotten memory returned to him. Many years ago, elders once warned villagers never to mock strangers around the forbidden stream. There is a woman in that forest, the elders had said, a woman who sees beyond ordinary eyes. Some called her a wanderer, some called her mysterious. Others believed she protected the hidden secrets of the forest. But nobody knew the full truth. And over time, people stopped talking about her until now. Until Chinedum returned. Open it! One villager shouted impatiently. Yes, let us see what is inside. Curiosity spread everywhere. Even children squeezed themselves through the crowd. Mama Oriako forced a nervous laugh. Perhaps it is ordinary forest water, she said carelessly. But her voice shook slightly. Chinedum looked quietly at the calabash. Then he remembered the old woman's warning. That depends on the heart standing around you. Those words echoed inside his mind. The boy suddenly became afraid. What exactly did the woman mean? He slowly raised his eyes towards the crowd. Everybody stared at him expectantly. Uncle Enyinnaya folded his arms impatiently. Enyinnaya smirked proudly. Oriako rolled her eyes. Mama Oriako clicked her tongue. Hurry up! Chinedum took a deep breath. Then, slowly, he bent down. The compound became even quieter. A baby started crying somewhere outside the fence. A dog barked in the distance. Then, silence returned again. Carefully, Chinedum lifted the calabash. It felt strangely warm in his hands, almost alive. Fear crawled through his body, but before he could stop himself, the calabash slipped and shattered on the ground. Immediately, a bright golden light exploded across the compound. Villagers screamed in shock. Some stumbled backward. Others covered their eyes. Then, suddenly, gold coins poured onto the ground. Silver ornaments rolled across the compound. Beautiful diamonds sparkled under the evening sunlight. Necklaces, bracelets, precious stones, shining treasures scattered everywhere like flowing water. The entire compound froze. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. Even the birds above became silent. For several seconds, the village itself seemed unable to believe what it was seeing. Then suddenly, treasures, chaos exploded instantly. Villagers shouted in disbelief. Women covered their mouths. Children screamed excitedly. Men pushed closer towards the compound fence. Chinedum himself stepped backwards in shock. His hands trembled violently. The old woman's words returned again. Your future. Tears slowly gathered in his eyes. For the first time in many years, hope stood before him physically. Real, bright, unbelievable. Meanwhile, something completely different entered Uncle Ezeani's heart. Greed. His eyes widened dangerously. The shining treasures reflected inside them like fire. Mama Oriak gasped loudly. Gold? Enyinnaya nearly jumped forward. Oriak screamed excitedly. The family completely forgot pretending. Their true hearts immediately revealed themselves. Uncle Ezeani stepped forward quickly. All these belong to this house. Chinedum looked shocked. But before he finished speaking, Uncle Ezeani bent towards the treasure pile greedily, and then something terrifying happened. The moment his finger touched the gold, his hand suddenly became stiff, completely stiff. Uncle Ezeani screamed loudly. Ah! He stumbled backward immediately. His right hand curled strangely against his chest. The crowd gasped in shock. What happened? Mama Oriak rushed towards him. Husband! Uncle Ezeani stared fearfully at his unmoving hand. I cannot move it. Panic spread across his face. The villagers murmured loudly. Did you see that? The treasure rejected him. Something is strange here. Fear slowly replaced excitement. Mama Oriak became angry immediately. What nonsense! She bent quickly to grab one of the necklaces herself, but the moment her finger touched it, a painful burning sensation shot through her hand. She screamed loudly and jumped backward. My hand! The crowd scattered in fear. Nobody dared move closer anymore. Meanwhile, Chinedum stood frozen. The old woman's warning now made sense. That depends on the heart standing around you. The treasures themselves seem to know the hearts of people nearby. Whispers spread through the crowd. The boy is protected. The forest blessed him. Maybe the old woman was sent for him. Fear and respect slowly filled the atmosphere. An elderly man stepped out from the crowd slowly. It was Papa Enyinnaya, one of the oldest men in the village. Everybody respected him deeply. He studied the treasures carefully. Then he turned towards Chinedum. My son. His voice sounded emotional. Tell us exactly what happened. The entire village became silent again. Slowly, Chinedum narrated everything. How Mama Oriak forced him out at night. How he walked alone through the forest. How he met the old woman. How she fed him, sheltered him, protected him, and finally gave him the calabash. As he spoke, many villagers became emotional. Some women wiped tears from their eyes. Others shook their heads sadly. Because for years, nobody truly knew how badly Chinedum suffered inside his uncle's house. Papa Enyinnaya turned slowly towards Uncle Ezeani. Is it true? Uncle Ezani avoided his eyes. Mama Oria quickly interrupted. He is lying. But nobody believed her anymore. Not after seeing the condition of Chinedum's body, his torn clothes, his thin face, his frightened behavior. The truth had finally exposed itself before the whole village. That evening, villagers helped gather the treasure carefully into baskets. Nobody dared steal anything. Fear surrounded the mysterious blessing. Papa Nana spoke firmly. These treasures belong to Chinedum alone. Uncle Ezani wanted to argue, but the pen in his stiff hand stopped him. Meanwhile, Mama Oriako burnt with jealousy. Silently, her eyes remained fixed on the treasures. The more she looked, the more bitterness entered her heart. How can a useless orphan suddenly become richer than us? She thought angrily. Enyinnaya noticed his mother's expression. Mama, she leaned closer immediately. We must find out how he got it, Oriako whispered nervously. What if the forest blesses us too? Mama Oriako's eyes slowly widened. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then, slowly, a dangerous smile appeared on her face. Night finally fell across the village. The treasures were safely locked inside Papa Nana's hut until proper arrangements could be made. Villagers continued discussing the miracle everywhere, inside small huts, under moonlight, near cooking fires. One name filled every conversation: Chinedum, the orphan nobody valued, the suffering boy everybody ignored, the same child who returned from the forbidden stream carrying unimaginable blessings. Meanwhile, inside Uncle Ezani's house, peace completely disappeared. Uncle Ezani sat angrily in one corner, struggling to move his stiff hand. Mama Oriako paced around the room restlessly. Enyinnaya looked frustrated. Oriako remained unusually quiet. Finally, Mama Oriako stopped moving. I know what we will do. Everybody looked at her immediately. What? Uncle Ezani asked. Her eyes darkened slightly. We will send Enyinnaya to the stream. Silence filled the room instantly. Enyinnaya sat upright, proudly. Yes, Mama Oriako continued excitedly. The old woman gave Chinedum treasure after staying with her. She pointed towards the door dramatically. If our son goes there too. Understanding suddenly entered Uncle Ezani's eyes. He can return with even greater blessings, he whispered. Mama Chinedum smiled proudly. Yes. Greed slowly swallowed the room completely. Nobody stopped to ask an important question. Why did old woman choose Chinedum? Was it truly about the stream? Or was it about the kind of heart someone carried there? But blinded by jealousy, they could no longer think clearly. Meanwhile, outside, under the moonlight, Chinedum sat alone quietly. For the first time in many years, nobody insulted him. Nobody shouted at him. Nobody treated him like a burden. Yet, strangely, his heart still felt heavy because deep inside, he missed the old woman already. He started towards the dark forest far away. Then softly he whispered, "Who are you, really?" The night breeze moved gently across the village, and suddenly, for one brief moment, it felt as though somebody whispered back from the darkness, "Stay humble, my child." Chinedum slowly looked up. Fear and peace mixed together inside him. because somehow he knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, Mama Oriakụ woke up unusually early. Excitement filled her body. She cooked delicious food for Enyinnaya as herself. Enyinnaya smiled proudly while eating. Mama, when I return, I will bring bigger treasures than Chinedum's own. Mama Oriakụ laughed happily. Yes, my son, Uncle Ezani nodded proudly. Our family deserves greater wealth. Oriakụ clapped excitedly. Nobody noticed the dangerous silence hanging around the compound. Nobody noticed the strange crow sitting quietly on the fence watching them. Nobody noticed the cold wind moving through the trees. Greed had already covered their eyes completely. And somewhere deep inside the forest, the forbidden stream waged silently once again. The end of episode 4. But wait, why did the mysterious treasure reject Uncle Ezani and his wife? Would Enyinnaya receive blessings too? Or was the forest preparing something completely different for him? And what exactly was the true secret behind the old woman near the forbidden stream? In the next episode, I'll be telling us what happened and answer all these questions. You wouldn't want to miss out, right? So kindly subscribe if you have not done that, so that you don't miss the next episode. Thank you.